Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing my favorite fantasy romance beach reads. Alright guys, so this is actually part of a collab video. So Hannah from the channel, Hannah Blackwell, reached out to me and a few other content creators and asked if we'd be interested in sharing some of our favorite beach reads. But I decided to give it a fantasy romance twist, so I am going to be discussing a few fantasy romance books that really give me all of the summer vibes and I feel are perfect to read at the beach. Now, I will have everyone else's video linked down in the description below, so make sure to check out all of their videos once you are done watching this one. And if you are unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all out of the way, let's talk about these fantasy romance books. And starting off, we have On These Black Sands. So this is a pirate fantasy romance, so I feel like it's perfect for the summertime. It has been quite a while since I read this. I actually have a reading vlog I will leave in the cards and the description if you want my spoiler-free, detailed thoughts. But this is following a pirate named Declan, and he does not want to be under the control of the pirate council. So he decides he is going to try to find this dagger that he knows will allow him to kind of escape their clutches. Now, when he is searching for this dagger, he finds out there's actually a stowaway in his ship, and that stowaway is going to play a very important role in his future mission, and she ends up becoming the love interest, and it goes from there. So overall, I did really enjoy this book. However, I still have not picked up the sequel, and I definitely need to do a reread before I try to pick up the sequel, because I forget 90% of what happens in this book. But I do remember it was very, very atmospheric, and I just loved all of the pirate ships, and definitely the perfect fantasy romance to read over the summer. And another amazing pirate fantasy romance is The Ever King by L.J. Andrews. Now, I will say, I guess this isn't technically pirate, but it definitely has pirate, siren, Viking vibes. We are following this girl whose father ended up trapping the Ever King underwater in this separate realm. Well, one day our main character decides to go off swimming with her cousin and accidentally opens the gateway and allows the Ever King to escape. And his first course of action is to steal our main character, to hold her as a hostage and try to get revenge on her father. And it is their romance. But oh my gosh, the pirate vibes in this book. Like I said, there is a siren that is super creepy. There's also these mermaids. And it has all of those summer vibes that you love in fantasy romance around this time of year. So I highly recommend. This is my favorite fantasy romance that features a pirate. I've pitched this many times as if you like Shatter Me, if you like Aaron Warner specifically in Shatter Me, you will love the hero in this. He gives me such Aaron Warner feels, and he uses love as both an endearment and also as a threat. And I love that so much. So if you have not read this yet, you need to check it out. I will definitely be picking up the sequel as soon as possible. All right, so this next book I normally wouldn't have included on the list. However, the special edition cover is really giving paradise, island, and that is The Never King by Nikki St. Crowe. And I never in a million years would have thought of this cover for this book. However, it really does work. So if you're unfamiliar with The Never King, it is a Peter Pan reimagining. All of the descendants of Wendy Darling are terrified of Peter Pan. So our main character is a descendant of Wendy Darling, and her mother is seen as crazy by all of the townspeople, and her mother has been warning her since she was a young child to keep her doors locked and to stay away, because when she comes of age, Peter Pan is going to come for her. And of course, she comes of age, and lo and behold, Peter Pan shows up and takes her to Neverland, where she has an intimate relationship with some lost boys and Peter himself. And it goes from there. I have not finished this series yet. It is novella length. I read the first two books. I think I started the third one and then put it down because I was reading them physically. At the time, there wasn't audio. I believe there is now audio for all of the books. But I will say Neverland definitely does have that paradise-esque feel while still being kind of creepy. So this would be a really good beach read if you're just looking for a really quick, spicy fantasy romance. And next up is a book that I have not finished yet. I have gotten to the halfway point. However, I am waiting for the audiobook because the audiobook is going to be releasing in July, and I cannot wait. and that is Ship of Bones and Teeth, and this definitely has those summer beachy vibes. It is a Little Mermaid reimagining, but with a dark twist. We are following a siren who fell in love with this human that she saw from afar, and she begged a sea witch to turn her human. So the sea witch ends up cutting out her tongue, turns her human, and unfortunately, life on land is not all it was cracked up to be. So it turns out Prince Eric in this version is actually horribly abusive, and the siren regrets her choices almost immediately. So fast forward, and our main character is on a boat with her husband, and it ends up being taken over by pirate ships, and I believe there's going to be a romance between the siren turned human and the pirate, and I believe the siren turned human is trying to find a way to return to the sea. So I've had friends, I know April from Happily Ever April adored this book. This copy was actually purchased for me from Isa from Fun Fantasy Books. I love this edition. It is stunning in person. So I am so looking forward to finishing this book, but I will say definitely check trigger warnings because it is dark, but also perfect for this time of year. And next up are two books by Danielle L. Jensen. First up we have A Fate Inked in Blood, and this is a Norse-inspired adult fantasy romance. Now, I really enjoyed this. This is following a girl or a woman who is in a loveless marriage, and she is forced to marry this man because he has a drop of god blood. So because of this, he is seen as very valuable to the community. So our main character was forced to marry him despite the fact that they actually don't get along. And this becomes very clear when her husband ends up forcing our main character to fight to the death against this very strong warrior who also happens to have a drop of god blood. So right away, we assume our main character is not going to survive this ordeal. However, when she is attacked, it is revealed to everybody that she also has this god blood, and actually she has a very strong ability that a lot of different tribes have been waiting for. So really, this book is just all of these different groups really vying for power and trying to use our main character for their own gain without really caring about her. Now, there is our love interest is the son of one of these leaders, and they do have a little bit of a romance. But really, I feel like this first book is a setup book. Now, there is a little bit of a pacing issue, or at least I feel there is. The first few chapters in this are so unbelievably action-packed, and so much happens, and then there is quite a lull in pacing, and then the ending I really enjoyed. So overall, highly recommend checking this book out. I really enjoyed it. And also by Danielle L. Jensen is The Bridge Kingdom. Now, I don't know why this fantasy romance always reminds me of the summer, and it's not because that's when I read it, because I definitely read it in the middle of winter, but I think it's because this bridge is on like a harbor where most of this takes place. Just all of the water and the discussions about water, it always makes me think of the summer. But this story is following a woman that was trained with her sisters to become an assassin and kill the person that controls this bridge. Now, if you control this bridge, you pretty much control all of the economy of this area, so everyone really wants it. Now, our main character ends up being the selected one who is going to try to make the current owner fall in love with her and then assassinate him. So I love the main character in this duology. She is just such a bad A, and she is so good. Now this started out as a duology, but now I believe there are 1 or 2 more books. I know The Inadequate Heir is one that follows the descendants of people from this book, and I think there might be another book that also released. I've only read the first 2. I really enjoyed them, and although they are YA, I feel like they definitely skirt the line to new adults, and definitely worth picking up. And next up, we have the Court of Blood and Binding series. So this is actually book 3 in the series, but I'm going to summarize book 1. But the reason I wanted to include it on this beach read list is because this takes place on these different islands. So it definitely has that summer island vibe. And also just the cover of this book screams beach to me. So if you're unfamiliar with A Court of Blood and Bindings, it is one of my favorite fantasy romance. It has a very unique magic system. Our main character is a human, and in this world, there are humans, and the humans are ruled over by the Fae. And that is because the Fae, who live on another isle, possess color magic. And the way this color magic works is they are able to draw on colors to produce magic. So you draw on red for destruction, white for healing, or you can kind of combine the colors to create unique magic. Now, the Fae are ruled over by the Mother, and she is the most powerful Fae, super evil, and she is a henchman known as the Silent Death. Because when he kills you, you are in so much pain, you are just silent. So anyway, one day our main character, who I said is a human, wakes up, her entire community is on fire, and standing above her is the Silent Death himself. And the story goes from there, but I will say our love interest in this isn't able to use his voice, so our main character teaches him a form of sign language, and I just love their romance so much. So unfortunately, I've not finished the series yet. I do believe most of the books are out via audio, but the first 2 books were, I think, 4.5 and 5 stars, and I did start the 3rd book, but I had to put it down because of other commitments, but I'm so excited to pick it back up. And the next 3 books are all part of a YA fantasy series. However, they are the most atmospheric books on this list. You will literally feel like you are sailing the waters with these characters. There are sea monsters, and the writing is just so beautiful, and it is one of my favorite YA fantasy romance series. So it is Fable, Namesake, and Saint. So Fable and Namesake are the original duology, and they are following this girl whose father is a pirate and ends up just abandoning her on this island that is filled with criminals and says, if you're able to find me, you can be part of my crew. So she grows up on this island and is able to survive, and she eventually is able to leave the island, and she is searching for her father. But while searching for him, she ends up finding a few other kind of like stragglers who should be friends, and it is their story of like journeying through this ocean to try to find a treasure and her father. And it's so good. And then Saint is a prequel, and it kind of tells the story of Fable's father. So overall, if you enjoy YA fantasy, I highly recommend Fable and Namesake. They are just so good, and once again, summer is the perfect time to read them. And last up is House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. So this is an fantasy romance, and it's kind of like fantasy romance light. However, if you work with children, I feel like this is a must-read. I recommend this book to so many of my coworkers, and it is a little bit of a stretch being on a beach read recommendation video. However, it does take place on like a cliffside, or there's lots of discussions about the water, but it is such a feel-good and just such a good book. So if you're unfamiliar with House in the Cerulean Sea, we are following this guy who's essentially a social worker, and he just lives such a mundane life, and he really is trying to find like his purpose. And he ends up having to go to this house where he is going to monitor and see if it's a foster family and make sure the foster father is like doing everything he's supposed to. When he gets there, he finds out that the kids were not exactly what he was expecting. One of them is Lucifer himself, and they're all just a bunch of monsters, and the foster father is like the sweetest man on the planet, Parnassus, and he essentially teaches our main guy like what there is about life and why these children are so special and how no one's really given them a chance. And it is a beautiful story, and please read it if you have not yet. But that is one of my absolute favorite fantasy romances. Like I said, kind of like fantasy romance light, but it is such a good and just feel-good beach read. All right, guys, those are my favorite fantasy romances that are perfect for summer. Please let me know down in the comments below if there are any other fantasy romances that you feel have those summer vibes. I will be doing a part 2 of this where I talk about contemporary romances that are perfect for beach reads. That'll be posted next week. But I'd also like to say a huge thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda, Erin, Leslie, and Kat. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel, and thank you all for watching this video. I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!